Ryan Carter was no stranger to the daily hustle of Brooklyn. The cacophony of honking cars, chatter from the sidewalk vendors, and the ever-present hum of the subway beneath his feet were the soundtrack of his life. At 14, he was sharper and more resourceful than most kids his age, a necessity in a household where money was always tight. His mother, Claire, worked long hours juggling two jobs, and Ryan often found himself filling the gaps by helping with errands and doing odd tutoring jobs for neighbors. That afternoon, he walked down the familiar streets with a rare glimmer of excitement. Clutched in his hand was his modest savings, enough to buy a thoughtful gift for Emily's upcoming birthday. She was the one bright spot in his otherwise demanding world, a friend, a confidant, and the object of his adolescent affections. He'd spent weeks planning for this day, imagining her delighted reaction when she unwrapped the small but meaningful gift he had chosen. As Ryan approached Max's Diner, a well-known neighborhood eatery famous for its hearty meals and gruff owner, he noticed a commotion near the entrance. His steps slowed as his sharp eyes took in the scene. An elderly couple stood just outside the diner, their clothes simple but tidy, their faces flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and distress. Max Wilkins, the owner, towered over them, his voice booming with impatience. "I told you, this ain't a charity. If you can't pay your bill, you shouldn't come here in the first place." Max's words cut through the air like a whip, drawing the attention of passers-by, who pretended not to notice. The elderly woman, Mrs. Green, clutched her purse tightly, her wrinkled hands trembling as she searched its contents. "Please, sir," she pleaded, her voice quivering with desperation. "We had the money. I must have dropped it somewhere. Just give us a moment to look." Beside her, Mr. Green, his frail frame adorned with a worn-out coat and a weathered hat, fumbled through his pockets. "It might have fallen out when we got out of the taxi," he whispered to his wife, his voice heavy with worry. Ryan felt his heart clench. He could see the humiliation etched on their faces, the kind that stays with you long after the moment has passed. Without a second thought, he stepped forward, his youthful determination masking the nerves fluttering in his chest. "That's enough," Ryan said firmly, his voice carrying a confidence that surprised even himself. "You can't treat them this way." Max turned, his imposing figure casting a shadow over Ryan. "And who are you, kid? Their lawyer? Stay out of this." "I don't need to be a lawyer to know what's right," Ryan shot back, his brown eyes blazing with defiance. "How much do they owe?" The question caught Max off guard, and for a moment, his gruff demeanor faltered. $25, he muttered, crossing his arms as if daring Ryan to follow through. Ryan reached into his pocket and pulled out the carefully folded bills, the ones he had planned to spend on Emily's gift. His hand trembled slightly as he extended the money to Max. "Here, that should cover it." Mrs. Green gasped, her tear-filled eyes darting between Ryan and the money in his hand. "Oh no, dear. You don't have to do that. We'll find the money." Ryan shook his head and offered her a reassuring smile. "It's okay. Everyone needs help sometimes." Max snatched the money, grumbling as he counted the bills, but Ryan didn't care. He turned to the Greens and said, "Come on, let me walk you home. It's not safe to be out here alone." The couple hesitated before nodding gratefully, their expressions a mixture of relief and disbelief. As they walked away from the diner, Mrs. Green squeezed Ryan's hand. "You're a kind young man," she said softly. "The world could use more people like you." Ryan felt a flicker of pride, but it was quickly overshadowed by the gnawing realization of what he had given up. The money was gone, and with it, his plans for Emily's gift. Yet deep down, A quiet voice told him he had done the right thing. That night, as he lay in bed staring at the cracks in the ceiling, Ryan couldn't shake the unease in his chest. He had stood up for what he believed in. But at what cost? Tomorrow was Emily's birthday, and he had nothing to offer her but an explanation. Little did he know, his selfless act had set into motion a chain of events that would change his life forever. Ryan woke up the next morning to the sound of birds chirping outside his window, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing in his heart. Today was Emily's birthday, a day he had been anticipating for weeks, but now, instead of excitement, he felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The crumpled bills he had so carefully saved for her gift were gone, exchanged for a fleeting moment of kindness. As noble as it felt the day before, the reality of facing Emily with empty hands was daunting. The air was crisp as Ryan made his way to Emily's house, the morning sun casting long shadows on the cobblestone sidewalks of their Brooklyn neighborhood. Emily's home stood out from the other townhouses with its neatly trimmed hedges and festive decorations. Balloons and streamers adorned the front yard, signaling the lively celebration within. Laughter and upbeat music spilled out onto the street, amplifying Ryan's anxiety with every step he took. When he entered, the party was already in full swing. Emily, radiant in a pale blue dress that complemented her auburn hair, stood at the center of a group of friends. She turned and smiled when she saw Ryan approaching, but her eyes quickly darted to his hands, searching for the gift she had been eagerly expecting. "Ryan, I'm so glad you made it," she said, stepping forward. "Where's my present?" Ryan's stomach dropped. The moment he had dreaded was here. He hesitated before speaking, his voice barely above a whisper. "Emily, can we talk privately?" Her smile faltered, curiosity and concern replacing the excitement on her face. She nodded, leading him to a quieter corner of the garden, away from the other guests. "What's going on, Ryan?" she asked, folding her arms as she looked at him expectantly. Ryan took a deep breath, his palms clammy with nerves. "Emily, I wanted to get you something really special for your birthday. I had saved up for weeks." He paused, searching for the right words. "But yesterday something happened. There was this elderly couple at Max's diner. They couldn't pay for their meal, and the owner was being horrible to them. I couldn't just stand there and do nothing, so I used the money to help them." For a moment, Emily simply stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then, her brows furrowed, and her lips pressed into a thin line. "You spent the money you saved for my birthday on strangers?" she asked, her tone a mix of disbelief and irritation. Ryan nodded, his heart sinking. "They needed help, Emily. It felt like the right thing to do." Emily's eyes hardened, and she crossed her arms tighter. "Ryan, today was important to me. You knew that. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. How could you think it was okay to show up here with nothing?" Her words stung, but Ryan tried to explain. "I'm sorry, Emily. I didn't want to disappoint you, but I couldn't just walk away from them. It wasn't about the money. It was about doing what was right." Emily shook her head, her disappointment evident. "You didn't just disappoint me, Ryan. You embarrassed me. Everyone's asking what you got me, and I have to tell them you didn't get me anything? How do you think that makes me feel?" Ryan opened his mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. He could feel the eyes of other partygoers on them, their whispers like a dull hum in the background. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, suffocating and inescapable. "I can't do this, Ryan," Emily said finally, her voice trembling with frustration. "I need someone who understands what's important to me, someone who thinks about how their actions affect me." Tears stung the corners of Ryan's eyes, but he refused to let them fall. Emily, I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I just, I thought I was doing the right thing. She shook her head again, stepping back, as if to put distance between them. I think it's best if we end things here. And with that, she turned and walked back toward the party, leaving Ryan standing alone in the garden. The sound of laughter and music felt distant, almost mocking, as he struggled to process what had just happened. Ryan stayed for a few more minutes, long enough to see Emily laughing with her friends, as if nothing had happened. Then, with a heavy heart, he slipped out of the house and into the cool evening air. That night, Ryan wandered aimlessly through the streets of Brooklyn, the city lights casting long, flickering shadows on the pavement. He replayed the events of the party in his mind, questioning every decision he had made. Had he done the right thing? Was his act of kindness worth losing someone he cared about? He found himself at the same diner where it all began. The neon sign flickered overhead as he stood outside, staring through the window at the empty tables and the staff cleaning up for the night. He thought about Mr. and Mrs. Green, their gratitude, and the relief on their faces when he had stepped in to help. He thought about Max, his sneer of disbelief when Ryan had handed over the money. And he thought about Emily, her disappointment, and the way she had walked away from him without a second glance. Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. His heart felt heavy, but deep down, a small voice reminded him why he had acted the way he did. Sometimes doing the right thing wasn't easy. Sometimes it came with consequences, but that didn't make it any less right. As he turned to head home, Ryan resolved to move forward, no matter how difficult it might be. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. He would never regret standing up for what he believed in. Little did he know, his journey was only just beginning. The following days passed in a blur for Ryan. School felt monotonous, and his once bright enthusiasm for daily life seemed to have dimmed. The weight of Emily's words lingered in his mind, and though he tried to push them aside, the sting of rejection refused to fade. Even his usual sanctuary, helping his mother with chores at home, felt hollow. Late one afternoon, after finishing his tutoring session with a neighborhood kid, Ryan decided to take a detour through the quieter streets of Brooklyn. The crisp autumn air carried the faint scent of fallen leaves, mingling with the distant aroma of roasted chestnuts from a street vendor. Ryan shoved his hands into the pockets of his worn jacket, hoping the long walk would clear his thoughts. As he approached an abandoned parking lot on the edge of the neighborhood, a soft metallic clatter broke the silence. Curiosity piqued. Ryan stepped closer, his eyes scanning the lot. Among piles of recyclables and discarded items, he saw two familiar figures. It was Mr. and Mrs. Green, the elderly couple, clad in the same modest clothes as the day Ryan first met them, were meticulously sorting through cans and bottles. Mr. Green's hands trembled as he placed cans into a large plastic bag, while Mrs. Green crouched nearby, stacking bottles with care. Despite the laborious task, they worked in quiet unison, their movements filled with a sense of purpose. "Mr. Green, Mrs. Green," Ryan called out, his voice gentle but audible enough to catch their attention. Mrs. Green looked up first, her tired eyes lighting up with recognition. A smile spread across her face as she rose to her feet. "Ryan, oh my dear boy, what a surprise to see you here." Mr. Green straightened, wiping his hands on an old handkerchief before extending one toward Ryan. "Son, it's good to see you again. How have you been?" His voice, though weak, carried a genuine warmth. Ryan stepped closer, his gaze shifting between the couple and the bags of recyclables. "I'm doing okay, I guess," he replied, though the truth weighed heavily on him. What about you two? What are you doing out here? Mrs. Green exchanged a look with her husband before responding. Well, times have been a bit tough lately, she admitted, her tone a mix of embarrassment and resilience. We're collecting these to sell. Every little bit helps. Ryan felt a pang of guilt and sympathy. The image of them being humiliated at the diner flashed in his mind, and he wondered how often they faced such indignities. I'm sorry things are hard right now, he said softly. Mr. Green shook his head, his expression firm. No need to apologize, son. Life has its challenges, but we've faced worse and come out stronger. Besides, there's always something to be thankful for. As they continued to talk, the Greens shared snippets of their past. They spoke of the years they had spent as school teachers, their love for helping children learn and grow. They recounted the challenges they faced after retirement, including mounting medical bills and the loss of their home. Yet through it all, their bond remained unshaken. You reminded us of something important, Ryan, Mrs. Green said, her voice tinged with emotion. Kindness still exists in the world, even in the most unexpected places. Ryan helped them gather the last of their recyclables, tying up bags and stacking them neatly in their cart. Despite their struggles, the Greens radiated a quiet dignity that Ryan found deeply inspiring. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the three of them sat on a bench near the edge of the lot. Ryan listened intently as the Greens spoke of their hopes and dreams, their voices steady despite the hardships they faced. You know, Ryan began, hesitating for a moment before continuing. I've been thinking a lot about what happened at the diner. I don't regret helping you, but it cost me something important. Someone important. Mrs. Green reached out and placed a gentle hand on Ryan's. Sometimes, the right thing to do comes with a price, dear. But that doesn't make it any less right. Her words resonated deeply with Ryan, and for the first time in days, he felt a sense of clarity. The choices he made, no matter how painful their consequences, were rooted in a belief that kindness and compassion mattered. That belief was something no one could take away from him. Before parting ways, the Greens insisted on giving Ryan something in return. Mr. Green handed him a small, neatly folded envelope. Take this, he said. It's not much, but it's a token of our gratitude. Ryan shook his head, stepping back. I can't accept that. You've been through enough. But Mrs. Green's smile was unwavering. It's not about the money, Ryan. It's about the gesture. Please, let us do this. Reluctantly, Ryan accepted the envelope, tucking it into his pocket. As they bid each other farewell, he promised to visit them again soon. The Greens watched him walk away, their expressions a mixture of gratitude and quiet pride. That night, back in the small apartment he shared with his mother, Ryan sat at the kitchen table, the envelope resting in front of him. His mother, Claire, noticed his contemplative expression as she set down a steaming cup of tea. Rough day? She asked, sitting across from him. Ryan nodded, his thoughts still with the Greens. Yeah, but I think I learned something important. He opened the envelope and found a simple handwritten note inside. It read, Dear Ryan, your kindness has restored our faith in humanity. You've shown us that even in the hardest times, there are still people who care. Thank you for reminding us of the goodness in the world. With heartfelt gratitude, Mr. and Mrs. Green tucked beneath the note was a folded $5 bill. Ryan smiled, feeling an overwhelming sense of warmth. It wasn't about the money. It was about the connection, the reminder that even small acts of kindness could leave a lasting impact. As he prepared for bed that night, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that meeting the Greens was more than a coincidence. Their paths had crossed for a reason, and though he didn't know what the future held, he was certain of one thing. This was just the beginning. The days following Ryan's heartfelt reunion with Mr. and Mrs. Green brought a mix of reflection and determination. His conversation with the elderly couple had reignited his belief in the importance of standing up for others, even when it came at a personal cost. However, his mind lingered on the incident at Max's diner. Something about that day didn't sit right with him, and the uneasy feeling only grew stronger. One afternoon, as Ryan sat at his usual spot in the school library, flipping through a history textbook, his best friend Lucas slid into the chair across from him. Lucas's usually cheerful demeanor was replaced by a nervous energy, his eyes darting around the room. "Ryan," Lucas began, his voice barely above a whisper, "there's something I need to tell you. It's been eating at me." Ryan set down his textbook, immediately sensing the urgency in Lucas's tone. "What's going on?" Lucas hesitated, his fingers fidgeting with the edge of his notebook. "It's about what happened at the diner. With the Greens." Ryan leaned in, his curiosity piqued. "What about it?" Lucas exhaled deeply, lowering his voice even further. "I saw something that day. Something I didn't tell you. After Mr. and Mrs. Green left, Derek, Max's son, picked up a wallet from the floor. I'm pretty sure it was theirs." The revelation hit Ryan like a lightning bolt. "Wait, you're saying Derek took their wallet? Are you sure?" Lucas nodded reluctantly. "Yeah, I saw him slip it into his pocket and walk into the back room. I didn't say anything because, well, you know how Max is. If he found out I was accusing his son, I'd lose my job." Ryan's mind raced as he processed the information. The image of Mr. and Mrs. Green, frantically searching for their missing money, replayed in his head, now tinged with anger and frustration. "Lucas, this is serious. They were humiliated because of that wallet." "I know," Lucas replied, his voice filled with guilt. "But I can't get involved, Ryan. Max and Derek are, let's just say they're not the kind of people you want to cross." Ryan leaned back in his chair, his jaw tightening. He understood Lucas's fear, but the injustice burned inside him. He couldn't let this slide, not after everything the Greens had been through. That evening, Ryan sat in his small bedroom, staring out the window at the Brooklyn skyline. The weight of Lucas's confession pressed heavily on his shoulders. He knew he needed to act, but the question was how. His thoughts were interrupted by his mother, Claire, who poked her head into the room. "Dinner's ready," she said, her voice warm but tired. Ryan nodded, forcing a small smile. "I'll be right there, Mom." As he joined her at the table, the familiar clatter of plates and the aroma of spaghetti filled the room. Claire noticed the faraway look in her son's eyes. "You've been quiet today. Everything okay?" Ryan hesitated, debating whether to share what he had learned. Ultimately, he decided to keep it to himself, for now. "Just a lot on my mind," he said vaguely. Claire reached across the table, placing a comforting hand on his. "Whatever it is, you'll figure it out. You always do." Her words gave Ryan a small boost of confidence. After dinner, he returned to his room and began brainstorming. He couldn't confront Derek directly without proof, but there had to be a way to expose the truth. The next day, Ryan stopped by the diner, under the guise of grabbing a quick bite. He sat at a corner table, observing the staff and the layout of the restaurant. Max barked orders from behind the counter, while Derek lounged near the back, scrolling through his phone. Ryan noted the security cameras mounted in the corners of the ceiling. An idea began to form. Later that evening, Ryan met up with Lucas in the park. The crisp autumn air carried the faint rustle of leaves as they sat on a bench beneath a street lamp. I need your help, Ryan said, cutting straight to the point. Lucas groaned. Ryan, I told you, I can't get involved. I'm not asking you to confront Derek, Ryan interrupted. But I noticed there are cameras in the diner. Do you know if they record audio? Lucas thought for a moment. Yeah, I think they do. Why? A determined glint sparked in Ryan's eyes. Because if we can access the footage from that day, we might find proof of what Derek did. Lucas hesitated, clearly torn. That's risky, man. Max is paranoid about those cameras. He watches the footage himself. Ryan placed a reassuring hand on his friend's shoulder. I'm not asking you to hack into the system or anything. Just distract Max long enough for me to get a look. Lucas sighed, reluctantly nodding. Fine. But if this backfires, you owe me big time. That weekend, the plan was set into motion. Lucas offered to cover an extra shift at the diner, giving him access to the back office where the security monitors were located. Meanwhile, Ryan waited outside, ready to slip in unnoticed. As Lucas engaged Max in a heated debate about the diner's outdated equipment, Ryan crept into the office. The room was cluttered with old receipts and invoices, but the monitors displayed a clear view of the restaurant's interior. Ryan scanned through the footage, fast-forwarding to the day of the incident. His heart raced as he spotted the moment Mr. and Mrs. Green left the diner. Moments later, Derek appeared on screen, bending down to pick up something from the floor. He glanced around before slipping the wallet into his pocket. Gotcha, Ryan muttered under his breath, quickly transferring the footage to a USB drive. With the evidence in hand, Ryan approached Max at the diner the following day. The room fell silent as Ryan walked up to the counter, the USB drive clenched tightly in his fist. Max, we need to talk, Ryan said, his voice steady despite the nerves bubbling beneath the surface. Max raised an eyebrow. What's this about, kid? Ryan slid the USB drive across the counter. It's about the wallet your son took. Max's expression darkened, but Ryan stood his ground. That wallet belonged to Mr. and Mrs. Green. They were humiliated because of your mistake. You need to make this right. After watching the footage, Max's face turned red with anger. Whether at Derek or at being caught, Ryan couldn't tell. But to his credit, Max called the Greens personally and returned their money, along with an apology. As Ryan left the diner that evening, a sense of accomplishment washed over him. Justice had been served, but more importantly, he had learned the value of persistence and courage in the face of adversity. It wasn't just about doing the right thing. It was about standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. Little did Ryan know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would test his character and reshape his future in ways he could never have imagined. The days following Ryan's confrontation with Max brought a mix of triumph and exhaustion. He had achieved justice for Mr. and Mrs. Green, but his victory felt fleeting as he returned home to face the realities of his own family's struggles. The weight of responsibilities pressing down on his young shoulders was growing heavier by the day. It was a cold Wednesday evening when Ryan walked into their small Brooklyn apartment, his sneakers damp from the rain. His mother, Claire, sat at the kitchen table with her head in her hands. Bills were scattered in front of her, some marked past due in glaring red ink. The dim light above them flickered slightly, adding to the air of unease. "Mom, what's wrong?" Ryan asked, placing his backpack down and walking toward her. Claire looked up, her usually warm expression replaced by one of fatigue and worry. "They cut my hours at the diner," she said softly, "and I lost the second cleaning job. They said they can't afford extra help anymore." Ryan felt his stomach sink. He knew how much Claire relied on those jobs to keep them afloat. "We'll figure it out," he said, his voice steady despite the storm swirling inside him. "I'll pick up more tutoring gigs. We'll get through this." Claire reached for his hand, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Ryan, you're just a kid. You shouldn't have to worry about these things." "I'm not just a kid, Mom," Ryan replied firmly. "I'm your son, and we're in this together." The next morning, Ryan woke up earlier than usual. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the cracked blinds, he sat at his desk, flipping through his planner. His tutoring schedule was already packed, but he needed to find a way to make more money. He opened his laptops and began researching opportunities for teenagers: babysitting, delivering groceries, walking dogs, anything that could help ease the burden on his mother. Later that day, he printed out flyers advertising his tutoring services and posted them around the neighborhood. At school, he approached his teachers, asking if they knew any students who might need extra help. His math teacher, Mrs. Bennett, was particularly encouraging. "Ryan, you've always been a bright and hard-working student," she said. "I'll spread the word. And if you ever need help with resources, let me know." That afternoon, Ryan headed to the local library to work on his homework and wait for any responses to his flyers. The quiet hum of the library was a welcome contrast to the chaos of his thoughts. As he sat there, a young boy approached him, holding one of the flyers Ryan had posted. "Are you the tutor?" the boy asked, his voice shy but curious. Ryan smiled, nodding. "Yeah, that's me. Do you need help with something?" The boy nodded, explaining that he was struggling with fractions. His mother, who stood nearby, looked at Ryan with a hopeful expression. "If you're available, we'd love to schedule a few sessions," she said. Ryan quickly agreed, feeling a spark of hope reignite within him. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Despite Ryan's best efforts, the financial strain on his family continued to grow. Claire worked late hours at the diner, often coming home too exhausted to do much more than collapse onto the couch. Their landlord had started leaving passive-aggressive notes about the overdue rent, and the pantry was looking emptier than usual. One night, as Ryan sat at the kitchen table reviewing his tutoring schedule, he overheard Claire on the phone. She was talking to a friend, her voice low and heavy with despair. "I just don't know what to do anymore," she said. "Every month, it's a struggle to keep the lights on. I feel like I'm failing him." Ryan's heart clenched. He hated hearing his mother talk like that. Hated knowing she felt like she wasn't enough. He wanted to tell her that she was wrong, that she was the strongest person he knew. But he also knew that words alone wouldn't ease her burden. One day, as Ryan was heading home from school, he noticed a sign in the window of a local grocery store. "Help wanted, part-time stock associate." It wasn't glamorous, but it was a chance to bring in extra money. After dropping off his backpack at home, he headed straight to the store and asked to speak with the manager. The man, a wiry figure with glasses perched precariously on his nose, sized Ryan up. "You're young," the manager said skeptically. "Have you ever worked a job before?" "No," Ryan admitted, "but I'm hardworking, and I'm willing to learn." The manager considered this for a moment before nodding. "All right. Come in tomorrow for a trial shift. Let's see what you've got." The next day, Ryan juggled school, tutoring, and his first shift at the grocery store. It was exhausting, but he pushed through, motivated by the thought of easing his mother's worries. By the end of the week, he had earned his first paycheck. It wasn't much, but when he handed it to Claire, her eyes filled with tears. "Ryan, you didn't have to do this," she said, holding the check like it was made of gold. "I did," Ryan replied simply, "because we're a team." As the weeks passed, Ryan continued to balance his responsibilities with an unwavering determination. The tutoring gigs grew in number, his shifts at the grocery store became more manageable, and his grades remained strong. Claire, inspired by her son's resilience, began exploring new job opportunities. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Claire shared some unexpected news. "I applied for a position at a local nonprofit," she said. "It doesn't pay as much as the diner, but it's full-time, and it comes with benefits." Ryan grinned. "That's amazing, Mom. You'll be great at it." The interview process was nerve-wracking, but Claire's years of experience and genuine passion for helping others shone through. She got the job, and for the first time in months, their family felt a small but significant shift toward stability. Through the challenges they faced, Ryan and Claire grew even closer. They learned to celebrate the small victories: an extra tutoring client, a successful shift at the grocery store, a warm meal shared together at the end of a long day. One night, as they sat at the kitchen table laughing over a memory from Ryan's childhood, Claire looked at her son with pride. "You know, Ryan, you've taught me something important," she said. "That even when things seem impossible, there's always a way forward. We just have to keep going." Ryan smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "I learned it from you, Mom." As he went to bed that night, Ryan reflected on how far they had come. The road ahead was still uncertain, but he felt a renewed sense of hope. For the first time in a long time, he believed that brighter days were possible, and that he had the strength to help make them a reality. The crisp winter air bit at Ryan's cheeks as he walked briskly toward Max's diner. The familiar clatter of dishes and the hum of conversation inside the establishment greeted him. But his focus was elsewhere. He had spent weeks juggling his responsibilities at home and work, yet the injustice of what had happened to Mr. and Mrs. Green lingered in his mind like an open wound. Lucas's confession about Derek Wilkins stealing the couple's wallet was the tipping point. Ryan knew he couldn't let the matter rest. His conscience wouldn't allow it. Ryan's plan required careful execution. He couldn't rely on Lucas to testify. His friend's fear of losing his job was too great. Instead, Ryan decided to collect evidence himself. With a borrowed camera from the school's photography club, he devised a way to monitor the diner's operations discreetly. Late one evening, after the diner had closed, Ryan returned with Lucas to set up the camera. The device was small and easy to hide among the cluttered shelves near the counter. Lucas, though hesitant, agreed to help. "Are you sure about this?" Lucas asked, his voice trembling slightly as he glanced over his shoulder. "Yes," Ryan replied firmly. "It's the only way to prove what Derek did without putting you in danger." For the next week, Ryan waited anxiously, checking the footage daily. Each day felt like an eternity, but his patience paid off. One night, as he reviewed the recordings, he saw it, clear as day. Derek was rifling through a customer's coat pocket, left on a chair, slipping a wallet into his apron. Ryan's heart raced. He had what he needed. The next morning, Ryan printed out still images from the footage and tucked them into his backpack. He headed to the diner, his resolve unshaken, despite the knots forming in his stomach. Inside, Derek was at the counter, leaning casually against the register. Max Wilkins stood nearby, his booming voice echoing as he chatted with a customer. Ryan approached confidently, his eyes locked on Derek. "I need to talk to you," Ryan said, his voice steady but firm. Derek smirked, folding his arms. "What's this about, kid?" Ryan reached into his backpack and pulled out the photos, laying them on the counter. I know what you did." Derek's smirk faltered. As his eyes darted to the images, he quickly grabbed them, crumpling them in his hands. I don't know what you're talking about, he hissed, his voice low but panicked. You can deny it all you want. But I've got video evidence, Ryan shot back. And I'm ready to show it to the police if you don't return what you took. Max, noticing the tension, walked over. What's going on here? Ryan turned to face him. Your son has been stealing from customers, including Mr. and Mrs. Green. I have proof. Max's face turned red with anger, but it wasn't directed at Ryan. He glared at Derek, who was now visibly shaken. Is this true? Max demanded. Derek stammered, unable to meet his father's gaze. It's not what it looks like, Dad. I was going to return it. Enough, Max snapped. He turned to Ryan, his expression hard, but begrudgingly respectful. Show me the proof. Ryan pulled out his phone and played the video, his hands steady despite the tension. The evidence was undeniable. Max's jaw tightened as he watched. Max exhaled sharply and turned to Derek. You're done here, he said coldly. Pack your things and leave. But Dad… No, Max interrupted. You've embarrassed this family and my business. Get out. Derek stormed out of the diner, slamming the door behind him. The room fell silent for a moment, before Max turned back to Ryan. I don't like how you handled this, Max admitted, his tone gruff. But you were right to stand up for those people. I'll make sure the Greens get their wallet back. Ryan nodded, relieved. Thank you. As he left the diner, a sense of accomplishment washed over him. Justice had been served, and the Greens would finally have closure. That evening, Ryan visited Mr. and Mrs. Green at their modest apartment. He handed them the returned wallet, along with a heartfelt apology for the delay in resolving the situation. We never doubted you, Ryan, Mrs. Green said, her voice filled with warmth. You've done more for us than we could have ever imagined. Mr. Green placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder. You're a good kid. Don't ever lose that sense of right and wrong. Their words filled Ryan with a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that the small acts of kindness he had shown were rippling outward, creating meaningful change. As Ryan walked home that night, he thought about how much his life had changed since that fateful day at the diner. He had faced challenges and made sacrifices, but each step had taught him valuable lessons about courage, perseverance, and the power of standing up for what's right. He knew that his journey was far from over. There were still struggles to face and mountains to climb, but for the first time in a long time, Ryan felt ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that he had the strength to overcome it. The crisp morning air carried a hint of spring as Ryan approached the small park where he had arranged to meet Mr. and Mrs. Green. The events of the past weeks still weighed on him, but he felt a newfound sense of peace. The Greens had been a source of wisdom and encouragement, and their gratitude for his efforts to return their stolen wallet was reward enough. Ryan spotted them, sitting on a bench under a blossoming cherry tree. Mrs. Green waved, her kind smile as warm as the sunlight, filtering through the branches. Mr. Green stood, his cane tapping lightly against the cobblestone path, as he gestured for Ryan to join them. Good morning, Ryan, Mrs. Green greeted, her voice gentle but purposeful. We've been waiting for you. Ryan sat down, a little curious about their serious expressions. Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Green. I hope everything is all right. The couple exchanged a meaningful glance before Mr. Green spoke. Ryan, there's something we need to share with you. Something we haven't told anyone. Ryan furrowed his brow, intrigued, but cautious. What is it? Mrs. Green leaned forward, her eyes searching his face. When you helped us that day at the diner, you didn't just show kindness, you showed courage and integrity. Those qualities are rare, and they mean more to us than you might realize. Mr. Green nodded in agreement. You see, Ryan, we aren't just an ordinary elderly couple struggling to get by. We've lived modestly by choice, but in truth, we have substantial resources, more than we could ever need. Ryan blinked, unsure if he had heard them correctly. I I don't understand. Are you saying you're millionaires? Mrs. Green finished, her tone matter of fact. For years, we've been quietly supporting individuals and causes that align with our values. But we don't do it for recognition or publicity. We do it to make a difference. Ryan was stunned into silence. He couldn't reconcile the humble couple he had helped with the image of philanthropists they were now painting. Why are you telling me this? He finally asked. Because, Ryan, Mr. Green said, placing a hand on his shoulder, we see potential in you. You have the kind of character that can inspire others, the kind of determination that can move mountains. We want to offer you an opportunity to work with us. Ryan's heart raced. Work with you? What do you mean? Mrs. Green explained. We run a foundation, the Greens Foundation, dedicated to education, community development, and social justice. We'd like to invite you to be a part of it. At first, as an intern, but with time, who knows, this could be the beginning of something extraordinary. Ryan's mind spun with possibilities, but doubt crept in. Why me? He asked. I'm just a kid. I don't have any special skills or experience. Mr. Green's expression softened. Ryan, you may not see it, but your actions have already proven your worth. It's not about your age or your resume. It's about your heart and your willingness to do what's right. Ryan hesitated. The offer was incredible, almost too good to be true, but he couldn't ignore the pull of excitement and the chance to make a real impact. I don't know, he admitted. This is a lot to take in. Can I have some time to think about it? Of course, Mrs. Green said, her smile understanding. Take all the time you need. But remember, Ryan, opportunities like this don't come around often. That evening, Ryan sat with his mother, Claire, at their small kitchen table. The soft glow of the overhead light illuminated her tired but caring face as she listened to his story. Ryan, this sounds like an amazing opportunity, Claire said, her voice tinged with pride. You've worked so hard, and this could open doors you've never even imagined. But what if I mess it up? Ryan asked, his doubts surfacing again. What if I'm not good enough? Claire reached across the table and took his hand. You're stronger and smarter than you give yourself credit for. The Greens see something special in you, and so do I. Don't let fear hold you back. Her words settled deep in Ryan's heart. He realized that this chance was not just about him. It was about honoring the trust the Greens had placed in him and the values his mother had instilled in him. The next morning, Ryan returned to the park where the Greens were waiting. He stood tall, his resolve firm. I've thought about your offer, and I'd be honored to work with you. Mrs. Green beamed, and Mr. Green nodded approvingly. We're glad to hear it, Ryan. Welcome to the team. They handed him a sleek leather folder containing information about the foundation and details about his role as an intern. Ryan's excitement grew as he flipped through the pages, each one revealing a new layer of the work he would be doing. A week later, Ryan found himself standing in front of a towering glass building in Manhattan, the headquarters of the Greens Foundation. Dressed in a freshly pressed shirt and tie, he felt both nervous and exhilarated as he stepped through the revolving doors. Inside, the atmosphere was bustling but welcoming. An assistant greeted him with a warm smile. You must be Ryan. Welcome to the Greens Foundation. Mr. and Mrs. Green are expecting you. Ryan was led to a spacious office where the couple awaited him. They introduced him to the team and gave him a tour of the facility. Everywhere he looked, he saw evidence of the foundation's impact. Photos of community projects, testimonials from scholarship recipients, and awards recognizing their efforts. As the day unfolded, Ryan's initial nerves gave way to determination. He was ready to prove himself and make the most of this extraordinary opportunity. That night, as Ryan sat on the subway home, he thought about how much his life had changed in such a short time. He was no longer just a boy from Brooklyn struggling to get by. He was now part of something bigger, something meaningful. But deep down, Ryan knew this was only the beginning. Challenges lay ahead, challenges that would test his resolve, his character, and his ability to rise above adversity. With the support of the Greens and the lessons he had learned from his own struggles, Ryan felt ready to face whatever came next. The soft hum of Manhattan traffic provided a fitting soundtrack to Ryan's first day at the Greens Foundation. The towering skyscraper loomed above him, its sleek glass facade reflecting the morning sun. Ryan stood at the entrance, adjusting his tie nervously. This wasn't just a new chapter. It was a whole new book. As Ryan stepped inside the building, he was greeted by Emma, the foundation's chief coordinator. With her bright smile and reassuring demeanor, she immediately put him at ease. "Ryan Carter, right?" she asked, extending a hand. "We've heard a lot about you. Welcome to the Greens Foundation." Ryan shook her hand, feeling a mixture of pride and apprehension. "Thank you. I'm really excited to be here." Emma gestured for him to follow her. "Let me show you around. We have a lot to cover today." The tour was nothing short of inspiring. Ryan was introduced to bustling departments filled with passionate individuals, each focused on projects ranging from community housing to educational scholarships. The walls were adorned with photographs of completed initiatives, smiling faces of children holding books, families receiving keys to new homes, and volunteers working in disaster-stricken areas. In the main conference room, Emma introduced Ryan to the foundation's core team. Among them were Linda, the head of public relations, a sharp-witted woman with a knack for storytelling; Marcus, the finance director, whose meticulous nature was evident in his neatly organized desk; Sophie, a young program coordinator who exuded boundless energy and enthusiasm. "Everyone," Emma said, "this is Ryan Carter. He's joining us as an intern, and I have no doubt he's going to bring a fresh perspective to our work." The team welcomed him warmly, though Ryan couldn't help but notice the scrutinizing gaze of one person, Kevin, a senior program manager. Kevin's stiff handshake and curt smile gave away his skepticism. After the introductions, Ryan was assigned his first task, assisting Sophie with planning an upcoming event for the Foundation's scholarship recipients. The event, set to take place in 2 weeks, aimed to celebrate the achievements of the students and showcase the Foundation's impact. As Sophie explained the details, Ryan took notes diligently. "This is a big deal," she said. "It's not just about celebrating the students, it's about inspiring donors to continue supporting our work." Ryan nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes to help make it a success." Sophie smiled. "That's the spirit. Let's get to work." Over the next few days, Ryan immersed himself in the Foundation's operations. He spent hours researching venues, drafting emails, and coordinating with vendors. Though the work was challenging, he felt invigorated by the sense of purpose that permeated the office. One afternoon, while sorting through files in the storage room, he overheard a conversation between Kevin and another staff member. "An intern like Ryan doesn't belong here," Kevin said, his tone dismissive. "We need professionals, not charity cases." Ryan's stomach tightened, but he chose to stay focused. He knew he had to prove himself through his work, not by confronting baseless criticism. As the event drew closer, Ryan's contributions became increasingly significant. He suggested a creative theme, dreams in bloom, that resonated with the scholarship recipients' journeys of growth and potential. The team loved the idea, and Linda even praised him during a staff meeting. "That's exactly the kind of fresh perspective we needed," she said, giving Ryan a rare sense of validation. Even Kevin couldn't argue with the positive feedback Ryan was receiving, though his reluctance to acknowledge it was evident. The day of the event arrived, and the venue was abuzz with excitement. The Dreams in Bloom theme came to life with floral arrangements, vibrant banners, and inspirational quotes adorning the walls. As the scholarship recipients and their families began to arrive, Ryan felt a swell of pride. He spent the evening ensuring everything ran smoothly, from guiding guests to their seats to addressing last-minute technical glitches. When the program began, he stood at the back of the room, watching as one student after another shared their stories of triumph over adversity. One young girl, Mia, spoke about how the Foundation's scholarship allowed her to pursue her dream of becoming a doctor. "Without the Greens Foundation, I wouldn't be standing here today," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you for believing in me." Ryan's eyes stung with unshed tears. In that moment, he realized the true impact of the work he was now a part of. As the event came to a close, Emma approached Ryan with a smile. "You did an incredible job tonight," she said. "The team is impressed, and the donors are thrilled. You should be proud." Ryan glanced around the room, taking in the joy and gratitude on everyone's faces. "It wasn't just me. This was a team effort." Emma's smile widened. "That humility is exactly why you belong here." That night, as Ryan walked home, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. He felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced before, but he also knew that challenges lay ahead. Kevin's hostility, the pressure to excel, and the weight of the Greens' expectations would test him in ways he couldn't yet foresee. But for now, Ryan allowed himself to savor the victory. He had found a place where his efforts mattered, where his voice was heard, and where his potential could flourish. Little did he know, the Foundation's work and his role within it would soon lead to challenges that would push him to his limits, forcing him to confront not only external obstacles, but also his own doubts and fears. The morning sunlight streamed through the large windows of the Greens Foundation office, casting a golden glow on the bustling workspace. Ryan, now familiar with the rhythm of the office, felt a newfound sense of belonging. But he also knew that his journey here was far from easy. Proving himself as a capable and valuable team member required more than just enthusiasm. As Ryan settled into his desk, a notification popped up on his computer screen, an invitation to a critical project meeting. The Foundation was planning an ambitious new initiative, a mentorship program for underprivileged youth. It was the type of project that resonated deeply with Ryan, and he felt both excitement and pressure as he prepared for the meeting. The conference room buzzed with anticipation as Emma outlined the details of the program. The goal was to pair young professionals with disadvantaged teens to provide guidance, skill building, and inspiration. Ryan listened intently, his mind racing with ideas. When Emma invited team members to share their thoughts, Ryan hesitated. Kevin, seated across the table, was already scribbling notes, his demeanor suggesting ownership of the discussion. Ryan knew speaking up could invite criticism, but he couldn't hold back. "I think we should incorporate workshops focused on real-world skills, like financial literacy and communication," Ryan suggested. "These are areas where mentorship can make a long-lasting impact." The room fell silent for a moment before Emma smiled. "That's an excellent idea, Ryan. Let's explore how we can integrate those elements. Kevin's expression darkened slightly, but he remained silent. Later that afternoon, Ryan found an email from Kevin in his inbox. The tone was curt and direct. "Ryan, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but you should focus on your assigned tasks rather than overstepping into areas beyond your role. We all have specific responsibilities, and it's important to respect that." Ryan clenched his jaw as he read the message. He understood that Kevin saw him as a threat, but he refused to let it discourage him. Instead, he decided to channel his frustration into action. Over the next few weeks, Ryan worked tirelessly on the mentorship program, collaborating with Sophie and other team members. He researched successful mentorship models, reached out to local community leaders, and even organized a focus group with teens from underserved neighborhoods. But Kevin wasn't done. He began to subtly sabotage Ryan's efforts, delaying approvals, questioning his decisions in meetings, and even taking credit for some of Ryan's ideas. It was a test of Ryan's patience and resilience. One evening, as Ryan stayed late to finalize a proposal, Sophie stopped by his desk. "You're doing great work, Ryan," she said, her voice kind but firm. "Don't let Kevin get to you. People like him thrive on making the others doubt themselves." Ryan nodded, grateful for her support. "I just want to make sure this program succeeds. It's too important to let personal politics get in the way." The mentorship program proposal was finally ready for presentation. The team gathered in the main conference room, where Emma and several board members awaited the pitch. Ryan was nervous, but determined as he walked to the front of the room, his presentation materials in hand. As he began to speak, he focused on the impact the program could have on young lives. He shared stories from the focus group participants, illustrating how guidance and support could open doors they never thought possible. "These kids don't just need mentors. They need hope," Ryan concluded. "And this program can provide that." The room erupted in applause. Emma approached Ryan afterward, her face glowing with pride. "That was outstanding, Ryan. You've exceeded all expectations." Even Kevin, though begrudgingly, nodded in acknowledgement. The success of the presentation marked a turning point for Ryan. Emma appointed him as the program's co-lead, a move that surprised many but earned widespread support. Ryan knew this was his chance to truly make a difference. As he began working on the program's implementation, Ryan made a conscious effort to involve Kevin in the process. Despite their differences, he believed in fostering collaboration rather than division. One afternoon, while reviewing program logistics, Ryan approached Kevin. "I know we haven't always seen eye to eye," he said, "but I value your experience. I'd like your input on this section of the plan." Kevin seemed taken aback, but nodded. "Thanks, Ryan. Let's take a look." Though their relationship remained strained, Ryan's gesture of inclusion began to ease some of the tension. It was a small but meaningful step toward building trust. Months later, the mentorship program launched with great fanfare. A special event at the Foundation's community center brought together mentors, mentees, and supporters. Ryan stood at the back of the room, watching as the teens interacted with their mentors, laughter and excitement filling the air. Emma joined him, a glass of sparkling water in hand. "You've done something incredible here, Ryan," she said. "This program is going to change lives." Ryan smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "It wasn't just me. It was the whole team." "That humility will take you far," Emma said. "But don't sell yourself short. Your passion and vision brought this to life." As Ryan left the event that evening, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. But he also knew that the journey ahead would be filled with more challenges. The Foundation's work was never done. and neither was his. The shadows of the past, both his own and those of the people around him, would continue to shape his path. Yet Ryan was determined to face whatever lay ahead with courage, integrity, and the unwavering belief that one person's actions could make a difference. The seeds of kindness he had planted were beginning to bear fruit, but the storm clouds of conflict and betrayal were already forming on the horizon. The crisp autumn air swept through Brooklyn as Ryan walked home from the Greens Foundation, his mind teeming with thoughts. The success of the mentorship program had given him a sense of achievement, but it also left him reflecting on how much his life had changed. As he turned the corner to his street, he spotted a familiar figure standing near his doorstep, Emily. Her presence sent a ripple of unease through him. It had been months since their breakup, and though Ryan had moved on emotionally, seeing her brought back a flood of memories. Emily looked different. Her usual confident demeanor seemed replaced by something softer, almost uncertain. "Ryan," Emily began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know if I should come, but I needed to talk to you." Ryan hesitated, his hand hovering over the doorknob. "What's this about, Emily?" She fidgeted with her scarf, avoiding his gaze. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about how things ended. I was wrong, Ryan. I didn't see what you were trying to do back then. I only thought about myself." Her words hung in the air, heavy with regret. Ryan studied her, searching for sincerity. He finally opened the door and gestured for her to step inside. In the small kitchen, Ryan poured 2 cups of tea and set them on the table. Emily sat across from him, her hands clasped tightly around the warm mug. "I've seen the things you've been doing," she said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "The mentorship program, helping the Greens. You've become someone incredible, Ryan." Ryan looked at her, his expression neutral. "I'm still the same person I was back then. The only difference is that I've learned to focus on what truly matters." Emily nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "I see that now. I just wanted to apologize for how I treated you. You didn't deserve that." "Thank you," Ryan said, after a moment. "But I've moved on, Emily. I'm not the same guy who spent sleepless nights wondering what went wrong between us." Her face fell slightly, but she quickly composed herself. "I understand. I hope we can at least be friends." Ryan took a deep breath, considering her words. "Friendship isn't something I can promise right now, but I appreciate the apology." After Emily left, Ryan sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker against the dark sky. Her visit had stirred emotions he thought he had buried. Yet, instead of anger or bitterness, he felt a quiet sense of closure. He had grown beyond the boy who once sought validation through others. His worth now came from within, and the work he did to make a difference. The following week, Ryan returned to the Greens Foundation, ready to tackle new projects. However, a tense atmosphere greeted him. Emma called him into her office, her usually calm demeanor clouded with concern. "Ryan, there's something you need to see," she said, sliding a folder across the desk. Inside were copies of emails, accusations, and internal reports. Kevin's name appeared repeatedly, tied to discrepancies in project budgets and missing funds. "What's this?" Ryan asked, his brow furrowing. "We've uncovered evidence suggesting that Kevin has been misusing company resources," Emma explained. "It's a serious issue, and we need to act carefully." Ryan felt a surge of frustration. Kevin's rivalry with him had been a persistent thorn, but this was something far graver. "What can I do to help?" he asked, his voice resolute. Emma's eyes softened with gratitude. "I need you to assist in gathering more concrete evidence. You've worked closely with him on projects, and your insight could be invaluable. Over the next several days, Ryan pored over project files and financial records, determined to uncover the truth. He worked late into the night, cross-referencing emails and expense reports. The deeper he delved, the clearer the pattern became. Kevin had been siphoning funds meant for community projects into personal accounts. One evening, as Ryan sat in the quiet office, Sophie appeared with 2 cups of coffee. "You're burning the midnight oil," she said, placing a cup on his desk. "Any progress?" Ryan nodded, his eyes scanning the spreadsheet before him. "I've found enough to confirm our suspicions, but we need to approach this carefully." Sophie sat down beside him, her expression thoughtful. "You've handled everything with such integrity, Ryan. Whatever happens, know that the team supports you." With the evidence compiled, Emma scheduled a meeting with Kevin, Ryan, and the Foundation's legal counsel. The atmosphere in the conference room was tense as Kevin entered, his expression guarded. Kevin," Emma began, her tone measured. "We've uncovered serious irregularities in the financial records. These documents indicate that you've been diverting funds." Kevin's face turned pale, but he quickly shifted to a defensive stance. "This is a misunderstanding. Ryan's the one who's been handling those accounts lately." Ryan remained calm, sliding the evidence across the table. "These transactions date back months, before I joined the Foundation. The trail is clear, Kevin." For a moment, Kevin faltered, his confidence crumbling under the weight of the evidence. Finally, he leaned back in his chair, his face a mix of defiance and resignation. "Fine, you've got me. But don't think this will end well for any of you." In the days following Kevin's dismissal, the Foundation worked tirelessly to repair the damage caused by his actions. Ryan took on additional responsibilities, stepping into a leadership role to ensure the affected projects stayed on track. Emma called a team meeting to address the situation. "Thanks to Ryan's diligence and commitment, we've been able to move forward stronger than before. Let this be a reminder that integrity and transparency are the cornerstones of our work." As the team applauded, Ryan felt a mix of pride and humility. The challenges he had faced, both personal and professional, had shaped him into someone capable of leading with courage and conviction. That evening, Ryan walked through the city streets, the cool breeze carrying the promise of change. He reflected on the lessons he had learned, not just about leadership and accountability, but about himself. He had faced his past, confronted betrayal, and emerged stronger. As he looked up at the city skyline, he knew that his journey was far from over. But for the first time in a long time, he felt ready for whatever lay ahead. The sun had barely risen over Manhattan when Ryan stepped into the Greens Foundation's bustling headquarters, a cup of coffee in hand and determination in his heart. The organization was entering a critical phase, with several large-scale projects in the pipeline, and Ryan was eager to prove himself. Amid the challenges of the previous weeks, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. It was during a networking event, hosted by the Foundation, that Ryan's next big opportunity emerged. The event, designed to bring together leaders from various industries, was held at an upscale rooftop venue overlooking the city. Ryan, dressed sharply in a tailored suit, circulated among the guests, discussing the Foundation's work and future goals. Toward the end of the evening, Emma approached him with a warm smile. "Ryan, there's someone I'd like you to meet." She led him to a corner of the room where a poised woman in her late 40s stood, deep in conversation with a group of attendees. Her name was Elena Marks, a celebrated entrepreneur known for her groundbreaking work in sustainable business practices. When Emma introduced Ryan, Elena's sharp green eyes locked onto his with curiosity. "So, you're the young man everyone's been talking about?" Elena said, extending her hand. Emma has been singing your praises. Ryan shook her hand, his confidence tinged with humility. It's an honor to meet you, Miss Marks. Your work has been an inspiration. Please call me Elena, she said with a smile. I've heard about your story, and I'm impressed. It's not often you find someone so young with such a clear sense of purpose. They spent the next hour discussing Ryan's experiences and aspirations. Elena, intrigued by his passion and resilience, saw a spark of potential in him. A few days later, Ryan received an email from Elena inviting him to lunch. Over a quiet table at a charming cafe, she made him an offer. I'd like to mentor you, Ryan, Elena said, her tone direct but encouraging. You've got the drive and the vision, but there's so much more you could achieve with the right guidance. Ryan was taken aback, unsure if he was ready for such an opportunity. Why me? There are so many others with more experience. Because you remind me of myself at your age, Elena replied, hungry to make a difference, but not yet sure how to navigate the bigger picture. Let me help you with that. Under Elena's mentorship, Ryan found himself exposed to new perspectives and challenges. She introduced him to the intricacies of strategic planning, financial management, and stakeholder engagement. Her approach was hands-on and unyielding. She expected excellence, but also provided unwavering support. One afternoon, during a strategy meeting for a new housing initiative, Elena pushed Ryan to think critically. Ryan, this proposal is good, but good isn't enough, she said, tapping the document in front of her. What's the long-term impact? How does this tie into the foundation's core values? Her questions forced Ryan to dig deeper, and by the end of the session, he had a clearer, more robust plan. Remember, Elena said as they wrapped up, leadership isn't just about solving problems. It's about anticipating them and creating solutions that last. Ryan's growth under Elena's mentorship wasn't without hurdles. One of the most significant challenges came when he proposed a new initiative aimed at creating mentorship programs for underprivileged youth. While the idea was well received, funding became a contentious issue during a board meeting. We don't have the budget for this right now, one board member argued. Shouldn't we focus on existing projects instead of adding new ones? Ryan stood his ground, his voice steady but passionate. If we wait for the right time, we'll never start. This program aligns perfectly with our mission, and I'm confident we can secure additional funding. Elena watched from the sidelines, a glint of pride in her eyes. When the board eventually approved a pilot version of the program, she pulled Ryan aside. You fought for what you believed in, without losing your composure, she said. That's the mark of a true leader. As Ryan's professional life flourished, so did his personal development. He began to reflect more on his values and the lessons he had learned from his journey. Conversations with Elena often veered into philosophical territory, touching on the importance of balance, integrity, and self-awareness. You can't pour from an empty cup, Ryan, Elena told him during one of their talks. Take care of yourself, or you'll burn out. He took her advice to heart, carving out time for hobbies, like sketching and spending more moments with his mother, Claire. Their bond deepened as they shared stories and dreams for the future. Over time, Ryan grew more confident in his abilities. His relationship with the Greens Foundation team strengthened as he took on more leadership roles, earning the respect of his colleagues. Sophie, one of his closest allies, often marveled at his transformation. It's like watching someone bloom, she said one day. You've always been capable, but now you're stepping into your power. Ryan smiled at her words, grateful for the support system he had found within the foundation. The culmination of Ryan's growth came during a major conference, where he was invited to present the foundation's vision for the next decade. Standing before an audience of hundreds, he felt the weight of responsibility, but also the thrill of opportunity. As he spoke, his voice steady and filled with conviction, he saw nods of approval and looks of admiration. He concluded with a line that encapsulated his journey. True leadership is not about seeking power. It's about empowering others. The room erupted in applause, and Ryan felt a surge of pride. He had come a long way from the boy who once struggled to find his place in the world. That evening, as Ryan sat on a rooftop overlooking the city, Elena joined him. They sipped coffee in comfortable silence before she spoke. "You've grown, Ryan. More than I ever imagined," she said, her tone filled with warmth. "Thanks to you," he replied. "Your mentorship has been life-changing." Elena shook her head. "You had it in you all along. I just helped you see it." As the city lights twinkled below, Ryan felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for Elena, but for every challenge, every setback, and every person who had shaped his journey. He knew there were more obstacles to come, but with the lessons he had learned and the support he had gained, he felt ready to face them. Weeks after the successful conference, where Ryan delivered his vision, the Greens Foundation was buzzing with activity. The momentum from the event had propelled multiple initiatives forward, and Ryan found himself at the center of it all. Meetings, strategy sessions, and community outreach programs filled his days, leaving little room for anything else. However, amidst the foundation's flourishing success, a quiet storm was brewing. Kevin, a senior project manager, who had been with the foundation for years, had always harbored a simmering jealousy toward Ryan. From Kevin's perspective, Ryan's rise was too rapid, and his influence too strong. To Kevin, Ryan was an outsider who hadn't earned his place within the organization. During one team meeting, Kevin's tone was sharp as he questioned Ryan's approach to a new mentorship program. "Ryan, don't you think this plan is a bit ambitious? We have limited resources, and your focus on expansion might stretch us too thin." Ryan met his gaze evenly. "I understand your concerns, Kevin, but this initiative is backed by strong data and community support. It's aligned with our long-term vision, and I'm confident we can make it work." Kevin's jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. Inside, his resentment deepened. Late one Friday evening, as the office grew quiet and the last few employees trickled out, Kevin executed his plan. He accessed Ryan's office under the guise of delivering files and downloaded confidential project data onto a personal flash drive. The stolen documents included sensitive financial reports and the strategy framework for an upcoming housing initiative, a project Ryan had spearheaded. The next morning, Kevin anonymously leaked parts of the documents to local media, framing the foundation's leadership as reckless spenders and hinting at mismanagement under Ryan's guidance. By Monday morning, the foundation was in crisis. News outlets were buzzing with reports of financial irregularities, and questions about Ryan's leadership dominated the conversation. Employees whispered in hallways, and some even expressed doubts openly. Elena called an emergency board meeting. Her tone was sharp as she addressed the room. "We need to get ahead of this. Ryan, do you have any idea how this could have happened?" Ryan, blindsided, could only shake his head. "I don't understand. The data being circulated is misleading, but the damage is already done. I'll do whatever it takes to clear this up." Kevin, sitting quietly at the end of the table, concealed a smirk behind a mask of concern. Determined to uncover the truth, Ryan worked tirelessly. With the help of Elena and Sophie, he reviewed security footage, emails, and system logs. They pieced together evidence until a clear picture emerged. Kevin's late-night access to Ryan's office stood out as a glaring anomaly. Elena confronted Kevin directly. "Kevin, care to explain why you were in Ryan's office late on Friday?" Kevin's face flushed. I was dropping off files," he stammered. "There's nothing unusual about that." Ryan leaned forward. "Then you won't mind us checking your computer?" Kevin faltered, but before he could respond, Elena interjected. "We've already taken the liberty of doing that. The IT team found traces of the leaked files on your personal device." The room fell silent. Kevin's betrayal was laid bare. Cornered, Kevin lashed out. "You think I'm the only one who's frustrated? Ryan waltzes in here, gets handed the spotlight, and we're all just supposed to applaud. This foundation was built long before he showed up." Ryan's voice was calm but firm. "Kevin, this isn't about me. This is about the integrity of the foundation. You didn't just betray me. You jeopardized everything we've worked for." The board voted unanimously to terminate Kevin's employment and report his actions to the authorities. The foundation released a statement clarifying the situation and reaffirming its commitment to transparency and ethical leadership. Though the crisis was averted, the experience left Ryan shaken. "How could I not have seen this coming?" he asked Elena during a late-night discussion. "Sometimes betrayal comes from where we least expect it," Elena said gently. "But how you respond to it is what defines your character." In the weeks that followed, Ryan worked diligently to rebuild trust within the foundation. He held open forums with employees, answered their questions candidly, and shared his vision for moving forward. His transparency won many over, but the scars of Kevin's actions lingered. The ordeal strengthened Ryan's resolve. "This foundation isn't just about one person," he said during a team meeting. "It's about a collective mission to make a difference. No setback, no betrayal will stop us from achieving that." The team's applause echoed through the room, a sign of their renewed faith in Ryan's leadership. One evening, as Ryan sat in his office reviewing project updates, Elena walked in. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "You handled this with grace, Ryan. Betrayal is painful, but you turned it into a lesson." Ryan nodded. "It reminded me why I'm here. It's not for recognition or personal gain. It's for the lives we're changing." Elena smiled. "And that's why you're destined for even greater things." As Ryan turned back to his work, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would undoubtedly have more challenges, but he was ready to face them. With integrity, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to the foundation's mission. With the foundation stabilized after Kevin's betrayal, Ryan turned his focus to a project that had been close to his heart since the day he joined the Greens Foundation. It was ambitious, transformative, and deeply personal. The Legacy Project, a nationwide scholarship program aimed at empowering underprivileged youth. Sitting in his office, Ryan gazed at a blueprint of the program spread across his desk. It was a bold vision, promising to provide education and mentorship to thousands of young people. "This isn't just about scholarships," he said to Sophie during a brainstorming session. "It's about breaking cycles of poverty and creating lasting opportunities." Ryan knew that to make the Legacy Project a reality, he needed widespread support. He began with the Foundation's board members, presenting a detailed plan at the next meeting. The room was filled with apprehension as he outlined the scope and cost of the initiative. Board member Angela Morris raised a hand. "Ryan, this is inspiring, but the budget for this project is unprecedented. How do you plan to fund it without compromising our existing programs?" Ryan met her gaze confidently. "We'll take a phased approach, starting with pilot programs in 3 cities. Once we demonstrate measurable success, We'll secure additional funding through partnerships and grants. The Greens Foundation has always been about bold moves. This is our chance to make an indelible mark. After hours of discussion, the board voted unanimously to approve the initial phase. Ryan walked out of the meeting, feeling a surge of determination. He knew this was just the beginning. Ryan embarked on a whirlwind tour of potential partner organizations, schools, and community leaders. One of his most significant meetings was with Dr. Melissa Grant, a respected education advocate. Sitting across from her in a sunlit conference room, Ryan made his pitch. Dr. Grant, the Legacy Project isn't just another scholarship fund. It's a holistic approach, mentorship, internships, and a support network to ensure students thrive. We want you to help us shape this. Dr. Grant leaned back, a thoughtful expression on her face. I've heard a lot of grand ideas, Ryan, but few have the structure to back them up. Your plan is solid, and your passion is evident. I'm in. Her endorsement brought credibility to the project, opening doors to more influential allies. To build momentum, Ryan organized town hall meetings in the pilot cities. At one such event in Chicago, he stood before a packed auditorium, filled with parents, students, and local leaders. This isn't about handouts, he said, his voice resonating with conviction. It's about investing in potential. Every child deserves a chance to dream, to learn, and to succeed. Together, we can make that happen. The audience erupted in applause, and several attendees came forward to volunteer for the program. Among them was Maria Lopez, a single mother whose son had excelled academically, despite significant hardships. She approached Ryan after the event, tears in her eyes. Mr. Carter, thank you for doing this, she said. My son has so much potential, but we've struggled to find resources. You're giving families like mine hope. Ryan shook her hand, deeply moved. Maria, your story is exactly why we're doing this. Your son will have every opportunity to succeed. As the Legacy Project gained traction, logistical hurdles emerged. One of the most pressing issues was finding qualified mentors for the students. Ryan convened a task force to address the problem, but progress was slow. We're facing a talent shortage, Sophie reported during a late-night strategy meeting. If we don't secure enough mentors, the program could stall. Ryan thought for a moment before responding. What if we tap into college alumni networks and retirees? There's untapped potential in people who want to give back, but don't know how. The idea proved to be a breakthrough. Within weeks, partnerships were formed with universities and senior organizations, providing a steady pipeline of mentors. A year into the program, the first cohort of scholarship recipients prepared to graduate high school. Ryan attended a small ceremony in Detroit, where students shared their stories of resilience and transformation. One student, Jamal, spoke about how the mentorship program had changed his life. Before this, I didn't think college was possible for someone like me, he said. But now, I have a full scholarship to study engineering. Thank you, Mr. Carter, for believing in us. Ryan's eyes glistened with tears as he shook Jamal's hand. You're the reason we started this, Jamal. Congratulations, you're going to do great things. Buoyed by the program's success, Ryan proposed expanding the Legacy Project to more cities. He presented a detailed report to the board, showcasing the positive outcomes from the pilot phase: increased graduation rates, improved community engagement, and widespread support from local stakeholders. Angela Morris, once a skeptic, now spoke in favor of the expansion. Ryan, you've proven that this project works. I fully support taking it to the next level. With the board's approval, the Legacy Project grew, reaching thousands more students across the country. The success of the Legacy Project brought Ryan national recognition. He was invited to speak at conferences and received several awards for his leadership. Despite the accolades, Ryan remained grounded, crediting the Greens Foundation and its values for the program's achievements. During a quiet moment in his office, Ryan reflected on the journey. He pulled out a worn photograph of Mr. and Mrs. Green, their faces radiating warmth and wisdom. "I hope I'm making you proud," he whispered. The Legacy Project's impact was undeniable. Communities were thriving, and countless lives had been transformed. But Ryan knew there was still much work to be done. With each milestone, he was reminded of the power of compassion, resilience, and the ripple effects of a single selfless act. As he prepared for the next phase of the Foundation's mission, Ryan felt a renewed sense of purpose. The Legacy Project wasn't just about scholarships. It was about building a future where kindness and opportunity flourished for generations to come. The air in Ryan's office felt heavier than usual as he sifted through proposals for expanding the Legacy Project. The phone's shrill ring pierced the quiet, and Ryan instinctively answered. On the other end was Claire, Evelyn, and Henry's longtime assistant. "Ryan," her voice quivered, "you need to come to the hospital." "It's Evelyn and Henry." Ryan's breath caught. "What happened, Claire? Are they okay?" Evelyn had a heart attack, and Henry collapsed shortly after hearing the news. "Please come quickly." The weight of her words crushed Ryan's chest. He abandoned the papers on his desk and bolted out, his mind swirling with disbelief. As Ryan rushed into the hospital, the sterile white walls seemed to close in on him. Claire met him in the waiting room, her eyes red and swollen. "They're in critical condition," she said, her voice barely audible. "They've asked for you." Ryan followed Claire to the intensive care unit. Evelyn lay frail and pale in one bed, while Henry rested in another, his chest rising and falling in uneven patterns. Seeing the two people who had transformed his life in such a state was almost unbearable. Evelyn opened her eyes when Ryan approached, a weak smile gracing her lips. "Ryan," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "we've watched you grow into a remarkable young man. You've given us so much pride." "Don't talk like this," Ryan said, his voice cracking. "You're going to pull through, both of you." Henry stirred and turned his head toward Ryan. "Listen to her, son," he said, his voice strained but steady. "You've always been more than just a protege. You're family. And now, it's your turn to lead." Tears streamed down Ryan's face as he grasped both their hands. "I'll do my best to honor everything you've taught me." With one final look, Evelyn and Henry shared a tender glance, as if drawing strength from each other. Moments later, their monitors flatlined in unison. The days following Evelyn and Henry's passing were a blur for Ryan. The foundation staff, board members, and countless community members reached out with condolences, but the void they left behind was immeasurable. The funeral was a grand yet intimate affair, reflecting the lives of two people who had touched so many. Hundreds gathered to pay their respects, from prominent business leaders to students who had benefited from their philanthropy. Ryan delivered a eulogy, his voice heavy with emotion. "Evelyn and Henry believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. They showed me that one act of kindness can ripple across generations. I promise to continue their work and honor their legacy every day." After the funeral, Ryan found himself in Henry's study, a place filled with memories of their brainstorming sessions and heartfelt conversations. The familiar scent of leather and old books brought a wave of nostalgia. On the desk lay a letter addressed to him. Opening it, Ryan found Henry's handwriting, steady and purposeful. "Dear Ryan, if you're reading this, It means our time together has come to an end. But don't grieve for too long. We've lived full lives, and knowing you has been one of our greatest joys. You have everything you need to carry this mission forward. Trust yourself, and don't be afraid to dream big. With all our love, Evelyn and Henry. Ryan clutched the letter to his chest, vowing to live up to their faith in him. In the weeks that followed, Ryan was summoned to the office of the Foundation's lawyer. The gravity of the meeting was clear, as he sat across from Mr. Thompson, who handed him a thick folder. Evelyn and Henry left very specific instructions in their will. Mr. Thompson began. They've entrusted you with their entire estate, including the Greens Foundation. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. All of it? He asked, barely able to comprehend the enormity of the responsibility. Yes, Mr. Thompson confirmed. They believed you were the only one who could carry their vision forward. Ryan flipped through the documents, the magnitude of what he was inheriting sinking in. The foundation, properties, investments, all of it was now in his hands. Assuming leadership of the foundation was both an honor and a daunting challenge. Ryan spent weeks immersing himself in every aspect of the organization, meeting with department heads and familiarizing himself with ongoing projects. During a meeting with the board, Ryan presented his vision for the future. We're going to honor Evelyn and Henry by expanding their work in ways they would have been proud of. This isn't just about continuity. It's about evolution. The board unanimously supported his plans, their confidence in him growing with each interaction. Ryan's first major initiative as head of the foundation was to launch the next phase of the Legacy Project. He renamed it the Evelyn and Henry Initiative in their honor, expanding its scope to include vocational training and mental health support for underserved communities. At the project's launch event, Ryan addressed a crowd of supporters, community leaders, and beneficiaries. Evelyn and Henry taught me that true success is measured not by wealth, but by the lives we touch. This initiative is our way of continuing their legacy and ensuring their values live on. The applause was thunderous, a testament to the impact Evelyn and Henry had made and the faith people had in Ryan to carry their work forward. Later that evening, Ryan visited their gravesite, the city skyline glowing in the distance. He knelt, placing a bouquet of white lilies on their shared headstone. I hope I'm making you proud, he whispered. Thank you for believing in me. As he walked away, a sense of peace washed over him. Evelyn and Henry's legacy wasn't just something he was continuing, it was now a part of him. The days following the public launch of the Evelyn and Henry Initiative marked a pivotal moment for the foundation. News outlets across the country picked up Ryan's heartfelt speech, showcasing the initiative as a beacon of hope for underserved communities. The story of a young man, once struggling to find his footing, now leading a transformative mission, resonated deeply with people from all walks of life. Applications for the Foundation's scholarship programs tripled within weeks, with letters pouring in from hopeful students, parents, and teachers. Ryan spent countless hours reading through these stories, each one a testament to the profound need for change. Ryan addressed the Foundation staff at a special meeting. We're not just helping individuals, he said, his voice steady but passionate. We're planting seeds that will grow into forests of opportunity for generations to come. Evelyn and Henry believed in the ripple effect of kindness, and it's our job to ensure those ripples reach as far as possible. Under Ryan's leadership, the Foundation expanded its reach beyond New York City, establishing partnerships with local organizations across the United States. The new initiatives included vocational training centers, programs designed to equip individuals with skills for high-demand industries like technology, healthcare, and sustainable energy. Youth empowerment workshops focused on leadership development and mentorship for high school students in low-income areas. Community health clinics providing free medical checkups, mental health counseling, and wellness programs in underserved neighborhoods. At the opening of the first vocational training center in Chicago, Ryan shared the stage with program graduates who spoke about how the initiative had already begun transforming their lives. A single mother named Alicia recounted, "Before this program, I felt stuck. Now, I have the skills and confidence to provide a better future for my son. Thank you, Ryan, and thank you to the foundation for believing in people like me." The crowd erupted in applause, and Ryan, visibly moved, replied, "This is exactly why we're here. Change begins with one person, and together, we can amplify that change across entire communities." Recognizing the power of mentorship, Ryan set up a program pairing scholarship recipients with successful professionals. He personally mentored several young leaders, sharing lessons he'd learned from Evelyn, Henry, and his own experiences. One of Ryan's mentees, Marcus, was a bright but reserved college student from Detroit. Initially hesitant, Marcus gradually opened up during their weekly sessions. "Ryan," Marcus said one afternoon, "how did you handle feeling like you didn't belong? Sometimes I feel like I'm in over my head." Ryan smiled, remembering his early days at the foundation. "I learned that the key isn't knowing everything. It's being willing to learn, to adapt, and to lean on the people who support you. You belong, Marcus, and you're going to make a difference." Ryan's efforts began to garner national attention, earning him invitations to speak at conferences, universities, and even Capitol Hill. At a forum on social responsibility in Washington, D.C., Ryan delivered a keynote address that left the audience of policymakers and philanthropists in awe. "Social change isn't about grand gestures," he said. "It's about consistent, thoughtful actions that empower others to rise." Evelyn and Henry taught me that the most powerful legacy we leave isn't in monuments or buildings. It's in the lives we change. The speech was met with a standing ovation, and several major donors approached Ryan afterward, pledging their support for the Foundation's initiatives. Amid the whirlwind of professional achievements, Ryan found moments to reconnect with his roots. On his mother Claire's birthday, he surprised her by renovating their old Brooklyn apartment, transforming it into a comfortable and modern space. "This is your home, Mom," Ryan said, as they walked through the newly refurbished rooms. "You gave me everything when we had nothing. Now it's my turn to give back to you." Claire hugged him tightly, her voice choked with emotion. "Ryan, you've always been my greatest pride. I never doubted you'd do great things, but this is beyond anything I could have dreamed." The Foundation's success led to Ryan being named one of Forbes' 30 Under 30 in social entrepreneurship. While the accolade brought attention to his work, Ryan remained grounded, redirecting the spotlight to the people and communities he served. In an interview following the announcement, Ryan said, "This isn't about me. It's about the countless individuals who've shown resilience in the face of adversity. They're the true heroes of this story." Not everything was smooth sailing. As the Foundation grew, so did the challenges. An unexpected funding shortfall threatened the expansion of the health clinic program. Critics questioned Ryan's ability to sustain the rapid growth of the initiative. Determined to overcome these obstacles, Ryan convened an emergency strategy meeting with his team. "We need to get creative," he said. "Let's explore partnerships, grants, and even crowdfunding if we have to. Failure isn't an option." Through a combination of strategic fundraising and a viral social media campaign, the Foundation secured the necessary funds. The experience reaffirmed Ryan's belief in the power of collective effort. Stories of success began pouring in from the foundation's beneficiaries. A young woman in Seattle launched a community garden after completing the leadership program. A single father in Atlanta secured a stable job through the Vocational Training Center, providing a better life for his children. A high school student in Denver, once on the brink of dropping out, earned a full scholarship to college through the Foundation's mentoring program. Ryan compiled these stories into a video presentation titled The Ripple Effect, showcasing how small acts of kindness can create waves of change. The video was shared widely, inspiring people worldwide to take action in their own communities. Ryan's story reminds us of the extraordinary power of kindness and determination, proving that even the smallest actions can lead to the most profound changes. But his journey isn't over yet. There's so much more to uncover as he faces new challenges, opportunities, and the ripple effects of his choices. What did you think of Ryan's journey so far? Do you believe one act of kindness can truly change a life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next chapter of Ryan's inspiring story. Together, let's explore how a single spark of compassion can light up the world. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.